This is a chart I made of all the Zelda games, how available each game is in the series. There's a couple of details here because I had some space, the US release date, the console, but not all of these are of equal importance to me. The main concern for me, how available each one of these games is to play, and it's only for the main series. There may be a few games that people are in disagreement about, whether they're a official series game or a spin-off. All it means to me is that there's no CDI games, nothing featuring Tingle as a playable character, none of the increasing amount of Hyrule Warriors games, stuff like Ocarina of Time. It starts looking pretty good, almost everything up to the first 10 entries being pretty accessible. It's not a comprehensive chart either. A lot of these games have re-releases or bundles on other systems, but in my mind, the most obvious and recent ways to play some of these goes back to digital storefronts, the Wii or the Wii U or the 3DS. Some of these were released on all three of them. You see Zelda 1 and 2 was basically on everything. There's a couple funny cases. The Oracle games only ever made it onto the 3DS eShop. Link's Awakening, the DX version, was only ever on 3DS. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, obviously 3DS Virtual Console, but then again they got re-releases. Of course, all of those storefronts are closed. For the first chunk of Zelda games, there's only one way to play them. The word choice is mine here. It's via the subscription on the Switch and Switch 2. I don't really like this subscription system they went with for the Switch, all these games. There are a lot of them on a lot of different systems. I really don't like the idea of having to pay a regular subscription to be able to retain ownership of them. Then again, it's thanks to the NSO that there are a couple of Zelda games that are officially supported. For the longest time, I felt Minish Cap one of the hardest to access Zeldas outside of its original console. I don't have a Game Boy Advance, but now that it's on the NSO, there is a way to play it. Four Swords Adventure. So let me see if I have this straight. Four Swords is a multiplayer game that came out on the Game Boy Advance, and you can only play it with at least one other person. It's on the NSO, and you need another person to play it. Four Swords Adventure is on the GameCube, was released as a bundle with a link cable for the Game Boy and GameCube, and you can play it either solo on the GameCube or with friends using the Game Boy Advance link cables and connecting them to a GameCube. I've seen for a bit of Four Swords Adventure. It seems like a neat little game. Hell of a job to emulate it. I don't honestly know if Nintendo would consider even putting it onto their subscription service. That sounds a bit difficult to say the least. That's kind of it for the classic Zeldas. I'm drawing a bit of an arbitrary line here at about Twilight Princess. It at least has some physical releases on the Wii, on the GameCube, on the Wii U. It is one of the other Zeldas that's totally missing from the Switch. Then you get into Zelda on the DS, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. One release on the Wii U, and outside of their original release on the DS, nothing. All of the 3DS Zelda releases are on their own console. As far as I'm concerned, the 3DS is still relatively easy to obtain games for, but that could change in the future And of course I have one, so it's easier for me to get a 3DS game. Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, and from there you finally get to all the games on the Switch, which of course aren't an issue. And the other detail I had here, I kept realizing there were multiple Zelda games with a different console re-release, and I had to figure out how to track them. For example, I think some people would feel that Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask were somewhat different games depending on whether you play them on the 3DS version or the N64 version, so I listed them separately here. There's the fact that the version of Link's Awakening I know is the DX version, which was for the Game Boy Color. That was the second release after it originally came out on the Game Boy. There's the Link's Awakening, the second version that they put out on the Switch, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on the Wii U, and then Skyward Sword on the Switch. Put all of the other versions of Zelda games down here at the bottom. I guess it's looking okay for availability of Zelda games. I want to play every one of them, so I'm not personally very concerned about how I access any of them. Emulation will make up for the ones that don't have an officially supported method. I still think it might be worth keeping track of this series, just how much of the series is accessible. If you only had a Switch or a Switch 2, you can play about 11 of them on the NSO, 12 with Wind Waker if you have a Switch 2, 17 out of 23. Not bad, I guess, if you were counting Wind Waker. You miss out on... Oh, I miscounted a little bit. So, missing out on Four Swords Adventure, Twilight Princess, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Track, Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, 6 or maybe 7 of them. Not bad, and depending on how avid of a Zelda fan you are, you might not need to play every one of them, but I do, so that's what I made this chart for, and you can find a link to it in the description. Thank you for watching.